Hey guys, welcome back. So I made a post on Instagram recently that said the point of law school is not to learn the law. The point of law school is to get a job. And I got some reactions from that. And it was so funny to me because rarely do I get this kind of strong reaction to something that I post. And some people were trying to fight me on this. And I don't really get into a lot of internet fights. Maybe I should post more controversial stuff more often. But it was really interesting because obviously I had struck a nerve. And I have some theories as to why this is that we will dive into here in a little bit. But it's interesting, isn't it? That even just saying that the point of a professional degree is to help you get a job, and not just any job, right? The job in the industry that you want to work in could be controversial or sort of evoke emotions and things like that. So I think that there are a few layers to this, and we're going to sort of talk through what those are. But the first one that I think is important to acknowledge is the fact that law school is designed as a gatekeeping system, which means that you can't just graduate college and walk up to a law firm and say, "Hi, I would like to apply to be a lawyer here," right? There are intentional barriers that are put in your path to actually become a lawyer. So things, of course, like taking the LSAT, going through 3 to 4 years of a law degree program, and then taking and passing the bar. And so you might assume that someone who goes through this entire process, jumps through all these hoops, breaks through all these barriers, would only do that if they wanted to be a lawyer, right? Because it's so expensive and so time consuming and so grueling that why else would you put yourself through that just for the experience, or just to say you did it, or just to check a box if you didn't actually want to become a lawyer? And I think what's interesting, and the second layer to this, is that most of us didn't go to law school to get a job as a lawyer. Our decision was actually motivated by other things, which is why I think that post made people feel defensive and really triggered people emotionally, because we made the decision differently. Now, I definitely know that there are a subset of law students who absolutely go to law school with the mindset of getting a job as a lawyer. And these people have definitely made this decision thoughtfully and intentionally and maturely. By the way, I am not putting myself in that category at all. And more often than not, they're a few years or more out of college. They've worked. Maybe they've even had a completely separate career. They might even have kids that they're providing for. And so it's absolutely part of their calculus as to getting this degree, whether they're going to get a job after law school, and if so, what is the earning potential, and is it more than what they're making now? But I think for a lot of us, especially those of us who went straight through from undergrad to law school, the K to JDs as we're called, didn't really have that in mind. And I think there are actually 3 major motivations for why a lot of us go to law school that actually don't relate to getting a job as a lawyer when we graduate. So people always talk about your why, quote unquote, right? Why did you go to law school? And from what I've seen and experienced, there are 3 pretty major reasons why a lot of us go to law school that have nothing to do with getting a job as a lawyer when we graduate. And the first one is the idea of being a lawyer, right? So this kind of falls under the category of just the excitement and the intrigue and the prestige that comes with this idea of being a lawyer, right? So a lot of us probably have images of walking into the courtroom and cross-examining a witness, or objecting or presenting evidence, and just kind of living out the fantasies of some of our favorite lawyers in amazing movies like Legally Blonde and My Cousin Vinny and A Few Good Men. And I think that's really coupled with this idea of prestige and praise and respect that comes with, or is associated with, being a lawyer and the legal industry, right? This idea that there are these select group of people who are smart and who are the warriors for justice, and that not everyone can do what they do, and just kind of this natural leadership almost that happens in communities and in political groups and things like that when people just hear you're a lawyer. So I think just that idea of being a lawyer is a really big one that gets us going enough to go through all of those steps to actually get this degree. The second big reason that a lot of us go to law school is because of the promise of more school, right? And so the idea of being a student for 3 more years is really attractive to a lot of us. And I actually heard one woman describe it as she went to law school, not to be a lawyer, but to be a law student, right? So this idea of learning the law, this idea of debating in classrooms with your peers and your professors, and then also just our comfort zone. For a lot of us who went straight through from college to law school, that is what we've known for the past 21, 22 years. And for most people who continue on to law school, it's because we've been really successful at it. We've been really great students. We've gotten a lot of positive reinforcement. We've gotten a lot of praise. Maybe we've won a lot of awards. And so school is really sort of our genius zone. And maybe we don't really feel that comfortable or confident or clear about what skill sets we have to offer in the marketplace or in the real world, but we sure as hell know that we have skills in the academic world, and that we're good at it. And so I think just this idea of continuing on with school is a really big one for a lot of us too. And the third big reason that I see for a lot of us heading into law school is this promise of a clear path, right? So when we are in college or even a couple of years out, we might not actually know what it is that we want to do. For most of us, that's the case, right? And if we're talking about going straight to law school from undergrad, we're talking about starting to study for the LSAT our junior year. And most, if not all of us, don't know what we're going to do with our lives when we graduate. And I think there's this inherent pressure from society, from our family or our parents, or even internally from ourselves, that we should know what we want to do, and we should know the next step, and we should have a plan, and we should have it figured out. And so law school basically caters to that, in that it kind of pre-packages a clear path for us and kind of just hands it over and says, here you go, here are the steps, this is what you need to do. And there aren't really a lot of gaps or questions, and there's a very clear outcome. And so I think for a lot of us, the idea of graduating college and just kind of bumping around from job to job, and quote unquote figuring it out, is probably our worst nightmare. And so law school solves that problem by giving us a clear path to continue on, which is what we've been operating under, the same structure that we've been operating under all through school since we were 4 or 5 years old. And so yeah, that's a really big motivating factor too. So with these 3 big reasons that a lot of us go to law school, which I think is really at the heart of why people felt so strongly about this post that I made, let me know if any of these resonate with you guys. I am definitely speaking from personal experience with all of these. These were absolutely the reasons that I decided to go to law school. I had very little exposure to actual lawyers and what lawyers did day to day. And so these sort of intangibles were really what got me started on this journey and on this path, and what made me continue to keep taking these steps. So let me know in the comments if 1, 2, or 3, or all 3, or option D, other, applies to you in terms of what motivated you to go to law school, or your why for law school. So circling back to this post that I made, I got a couple of comments from people who said things like, well, I would definitely want any lawyer representing me to know the law. Or someone who said there are a lot of good things that you learn from law school classes, or law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer. So I wanted to address that because for any of us who have been on the other side of law school, it is no secret that law school doesn't actually teach you or prepare you to be a lawyer. You cannot graduate from law school and then walk into a law firm and know anything about what you're doing. And this has to be intentional. It has to be by design, because it's been called out for years and it's been repeating itself for over 100 years. Law school's been taught the same way. So I know that this is by design. I'm not totally sure why. I have my theories. But it's essentially not practical application. So in law school, you're not going to be be taught things like how to draft a complaint, how to answer written discovery, how to create a trial strategy, how to pitch to a client, how to develop a scheduling order. And so those are all litigation things, by the way. So you also are not going to learn any of the how-tos to be a transactional attorney, although that's probably a whole nother conversation about how law school is very litigation-based and completely not transactional law-based, even though transactional law is as big, if not bigger, of an umbrella type of practice area in the law. Anyway, my point here is that law school does not have practical application. And so these things that you're learning in class are sort of like this base foundation, I suppose. And maybe there are some hidden benefits or intangible benefits, but it's pretty wild that for as much money as we're paying and for as long as we're doing this, that the focus is on legal theory and legal foundations and not actually the day-to-day skill set of being a lawyer. And so when I think back to practicing law and the number of times I looked back at my notes over the course of those 3 years in law school, I know exactly what the answer is. And the answer is zero. 0 times did I ever go back and look at anything that I learned in law school to help me in the practice of law. To give you guys the straight up transparency of how law is usually practiced, it's by Google. We Google so much stuff about how to practice law and about what different legal standards are and rules and statutes and things like that. In fact, it is the most efficient way to begin digging into a lot of aspects of the law, is just to Google it. Anyway, that's beside the point. But I think the point here is that in this degree, because we are not taught how to practice law, I would very vehemently argue that learning the law is actually not the ROI or the return on investment of law school. It's kind of fun sometimes. Most of the time, it's pretty devastatingly difficult. And it's maybe a nice to have, but it's definitely not what you're getting from the degree. And so I think that really sort of underpins the basis of the statement in the post, right? That learning the law is not the point, getting a job is the point. And I think that's why I made some people upset. Now, I will say and happily concede that the statement that getting a law degree, what did I say? That the point of a law degree is to get a job is overly simplistic in the sense that anytime you go through a life experience, there are these beautiful intangibles, right? Anytime you challenge yourself or push yourself outside of your comfort zone, that's where growth happens. And so law school is so full of growth. There are so many things that you're faced with. And, I've just heard from so many people saying that I'm a completely different person after law school than I was before law school. And some of that is good and some of that is not so great. But the great stuff are things like falling on your face 1,000,000 times and continuing to get back up, or pushing yourself mentally and emotionally in ways that you never thought you could handle or could possibly do. Of course, meeting some amazing people who can be lifelong friends. And so, there's some really, really great pieces to law school that are not just outcome driven, right? That being said, to kind of close this conversation and kind of meanderingly get to the point that I think I'm making with this whole post and this whole video, is that for most of us, putting in 3 to 4 years, putting in $180,000, giving up opportunity costs for other things that we could be doing, time we could be spending, other life experiences we could be having, the sort of mental, emotional, and resource cost of law school is as heavy as it is. And as a result, we are looking for a return on investment. And that return on investment is a job that we're really excited about, ideally in a type of law that we're interested in or figure out that we're interested in later on, ideally with an earning potential that's higher than we otherwise would have had if we hadn't have gone to law school, and just building a life that we are really, really pumped to build. And And so at the end of the day, that was really the point of the post that I was getting at, is that if we can start to even very slowly, in a small way, think of law school as a little bit more income driven, outcome driven, then I think a lot of us think about going in, then we can almost start to relate to it differently and start to see the value in things like beginning to reach out to people in the legal community, or begin to think through, well, what is a day in the life of a lawyer really like? Or what types of law are there out there? Which ones might I want to practice? Or see the value in beginning to build relationships and really recognizing that this is not a journey that begins and ends with law school, right? That this is a journey that only begins with law school. And then we continue it from there and build the career and build the life that we really want. And I think that can really help impact a lot of our decisions about whether to go to law school at all. If so, where geographically, and what law school, what are the employment outcomes, what are the bar passage rates, how much is this going to cost, what is the average starting salary, right? So some more of those sort of tangible pieces that I think would really save a lot of heartache and a lot of heartbreak that tend to happen on the back end when we don't think about this degree as helping us achieve something more tangible, like a job, like an income, like a new life. So anyway, that got a little deep intentionally, and I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say. How did that hit? Are these things you already were thinking about and I'm just totally off base here? Or is there anything that you would like to add? So I look forward to reading your comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.